Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Big Blonde Beautiful, the podcast. If you're new here, my name's Kara, and each week I pick a piece of media, I talk about the fat representation in it, and give you my opinion on whether or not I think it's positive or negative. I'm super excited because this week, not only is it our season finale, so we have a special topic, but it's also, I have a special guest, Miss Anjene'e Marion. If you want to kind of introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners, who you are.
All right. Hello, I'm Anjene'e, and I grew up in the 217. I now live in Los Angeles, and I work in casting. It's not something that I want to do forever. I'd love to write television, but at the moment, I am working in casting. I have done scripted work, but reality television has been paying the bills for a hot minute.
Did you go to the writers' strike at all?
I never got to make it to the writer's strike, and it's still going on. They tried to do something on August 4th. I think it maybe kind of just like scared networks because now there's also the actors strike as well. So I think they're like, oh, if we can put one to bed instead of both of them working together, okay. And then they still did not meet anything, and nothing was resolved during the August 4th meeting, so they're still on strike. There was a post that I saw on Instagram recently that now like it's like AI needs help with writing and like their jobs. Like, so it's like literally like they're like, well, we're just gonna force your hand. We're gonna find somebody who will do what you won't do. And and their A24 actually is still able to produce and work on films in their upcoming projects because they actually did adhere to the guidelines that SAG-AFTRA and writers wanted. So a small network could do it. These big networks can do it as well. So it is
Yeah,
something that is a little bit of moving the hand in the favor of the people who want to make this. This is, something that I went to school for. I love working in the industry. It's sad that I have to think about what else could I do to have some type of a sustainable living. So yeah.
I definitely could pay. They have plenty of money. And it's just, I'm still looking for a job. Job search has not been going
Baby.
great. Haven't heard back, but I'm still chugging along. But
Mhm.
it's so disrespectful when they won't even pay you a livable wage. Like a
That
lot of the places that I've looked at, and I've looked at the job description, I'm like, oh, this sounds great. And then I look at how much they're willing to pay, $40,000 to live in LA. I'm like, you cannot, and for full time. I'm like,
mhm.
you cannot do that.
It's
So,
hard. It's very hard. And even my friends and I, this has been a big chat with a lot of my friends who have been working in this industry a little bit longer than me, even. And one friend, she actually had an interview to do some type of a hybrid for like games, video games, and casting with television type of thing. She's like, it's not, she's like, I love video games and I love casting, but like, it's not really, I mean, I just need something that's stable. Like, because right now we're in a
yeah.
freelance world. We're literally construction workers for like the industry in a sense without the union. We don't have a union
Mm-hmm.
working in reality television. So she was like, I get paid less, but I also would have benefits. I can get my health back on track. I can sleep at night knowing that I'm going to have a job on Monday and, that the bills will be billing and I'll be able to pay some of them and work it out. Like,
Yeah.
so those are things that my friends and I recently, like last week, this week, had those chats because we're just like, what are we going to do?
I saw that you were or you are doing casting for Let's Make a Deal.
Yes, I'm still working on that. Yeah, the season actually hasn't aired yet. So any episode that you're watching now is from last season. When I started getting back into game shows, it's been a long time since I've been home sick watching television at 10 a.m. and Let's Make a Deal used to come on in the morning. Then it was like during midday at like 2 p.m. Like regular time. So, and my mom would watch them. So like every once in a while I'll be like, oh, like I didn't even know that, The Price is Right had male models until I started working on it. And I randomly came home once and at 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, oh my gosh. So a lot of stuff has changed and they've changed their time frames. And then also they've started to have a lot of primetime shows to try and give themselves more, stake in the game to get Emmys for primetime shows. So that's another big, thing that wasn't really normal for those game shows too. So there's a lot going on. It's different. LA is a place, and you'll find out, like, if you're any type of a TV or film buff, you'll hear these like amazing stories of I showed up every day and finally got a job on the set, or we made these movies for X amount of money. I think they made Halloween, one of the biggest franchise horror movies of all time, the very first one for like 30 grand, and it's made way more than that. So
Mm-hmm.
we always make the joke, and it's just a thing that was a joke before, but we're not laughing anymore because it's just hard to sustain this life. But they will put together some duct tape and paper clips, and your favorite movie or show is born. But honey, behind the scenes, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and negotiations. And if I do this favor for you, will you do this favor for me to make it happen? And sometimes it's like a fun camaraderie story, and other times it's kind of traumatizing if you really look at it, like it shouldn't have been that hard. So I think
Mm-hmm.
a line that Hollywood is trying to find now, where it's like this isn't fun. Like, and even for me in casting, I've had issues with people who have done it a little bit longer than me, who are like, well, back in the day when I did this, we stayed up all night, we did this, and I didn't get overtime, and I didn't bellyache, da da da. Like, no, like, you should have. Like,
Yeah.
that mindset isn't something that we should be proud of. And for a while, Hollywood was very proud of that. So it's
Yeah.
something that we're trying to say that was abuse.
Yeah.
It's not
I've
glorified.
definitely seen that shifting. Like, I see TikToks all the time about silent quitting and things, and like having boundaries. Like, you only pay me from this hour to this hour. So, unless you're willing to compensate me for overtime, then I'm not going to work overtime.
Yeah. And I've had
Which
bosses
is,
that knew that I worked well above the time that they gave me. And I'm still like close with them, and it is a little bit of my Midwestern upbringing where we just work, work, work until we die. um,
yes,
I have boomer parents that, that mindset of I'm just going to work until I
we're
can get.
built to work in the corn. Like,
No, so there were times that I was leaving well after my bosses when I got my first job. I was working on Let's Make a Deal. And not that I feel anything about that. That was my decision.
mhm.
But it was an unhealthy thing for me. But that was just also like, I got the job from a friend. I didn't want her name to be smeared in the streets of Hollywood. So I really wanted to live up to, her recommendation for me. And it was hard working in game shows. It's a very fast turnover. And I felt better working in office. So there were times that I left after my bosses, and not that they made me feel like I needed to do that. It's
Mhm.
just, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I worked really hard, but that's because I also came from a background where I felt like I needed to be like that. And there were those weird juxtapositions of old school Hollywood and making sure I stayed with it. So I am very aware of like that. I never felt like I needed to do that for that specific job, and I've worked with those people multiple times and love them
Yeah,
dearly. But there have also been jobs where, sometimes you feel like there's just no other way. You just have to do
definitely feel
it.
that Midwestern, like, gotta grind really
Yeah,
hard all the time.
because we have stuff to lose. We're not from here. There's like literally, I would have to go back home. I don't have a kind of system where I can fall back on out here as far as like
Yeah.
people who are from here or maybe from the state over, like going back home to, Nevada while you figure it out in Vegas, like, or Arizona. Like, people come back all the time, but to go cross country multiple times to try and figure it out, that is not my bag. So I'm here to stay, and I'm gonna figure it out.
I'm curious, how is being plus size different in Danville than it is in LA?
So growing up, my body type was always different. So for me in Danville, I didn't really completely understand. I thought that I was fat because if you remember those times, Paris Hilton was the standard when I got a little older. I didn't
Mhm.
have the Kardashian uprising. Had I, maybe it would have been different for me, because there was always this fine line of like, I am skinny. I had a body that was just very voluptuous. It wasn't that I was fat. at that time. But it didn't look like everybody else's. I went to private Catholic school. Majority of the people were white. So my body type was not like theirs either. So just in a nutshell, I thought I was fat. I seemed to be fat, and I did not fit the standard of the Abercrombie and Fitch, Hollister, and like I said, Paris Hilton, like that early 2000s where you're seeing people's hip bones and they're showing dermal piercings and, to show how thin they are, the further south you go. That was not my bag. Baby had hips. So it was hard for me definitely at that time. Now in LA, I feel like fat phobia it is what it is. We do have more of a body positive inclusivity moment happening. Sucks that I want to say this one creator, but she is under fire right now. Who it is. I was like that pioneer for that. We really had a grip on, there's so many other things happening. People have so many hormone imbalances. There's so many other reasons why people may be bigger. Please stop just going straight to the fat shame. Stop eating. Stop binging, because that's not everybody's bag. That's not everybody's problem. So I feel like in general, being older out here and being plus size, I think it's easier just in the time we're in. But I don't think that it's easy in a sense because it's still an issue. It's still an issue for me. Especially dating, it's still an issue. It always was an issue growing up because, the guys secretly liked me, but never, would act upon that. They would say innuendos and things to me in secret, but made sure that the beanpole was on their arm in public. So I grew up with that too. And I don't know if it would have been different out here. I think that was just the times. I think that everybody felt that same thing.
I definitely feel the dating thing. It's hard. They either do that, aren't interested, or it's like a fetish thing and it grosses me out.
The fetish is big. There are dating apps towards those types of things. And I've had friends, and even myself included, where I looked into those apps in a down time to see if that means that they're like interested in that and what I look like. I don't have to sit here and have the right angle on Hinge or Tinder or something, because then when they see me in public, they're like, oh, I didn't know it was like that. And I'm like, okay, well, it was the same body in that picture, but I definitely know how to work an angle or two. So, there's things like that as also, but yeah, I found a lot of guys who do mistreat me in general because they think that like they are God's gift to earth, or that I'm happy that they're giving me attention. I'm like, I've always had attention. Don't do that. There's a guy who still, reaches out and reached out last week. And I was like, absolutely not, because he ghosted me and he is a very toned, muscular dude. And no, like, you weren't the prize baby I was. So like, and he's like, I'll cook for you no, you're very attractive. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And I just keep telling him that. And he sends me pictures of himself. Like, yes, I know you're an attractive man. I don't care. You had one chance. You messed up. And I'm that type of person. I know not everybody can be like that, but eventually you get to a place where you're tired of people taking you for granted, especially men. My God. So yeah, the dating, the fetishizing, and then I also have like an extra layer from like the fetishizing of being like a Black woman. I get that a lot too when I find people who are like, "Oh, I've never been with a Black girl." Like, okay, it's cool. Like, why haven't you? Like, at this age, why haven't you? Because it's not. I swear, our vaginas work the same. They're the same color. So sometimes it's very hard for me on dating sites as well, because I'm trying to figure out if it's like, oh, BBW things, or is it because you've never been with a Black girl before and you want to know if you'll ever go back. I don't. And some people say crazy things. I had a guy on Juneteenth who happened to be white, who I had messed with before. He was like, enslave me, after he saw some of the pictures that I put up from that day. And I was like, how did you think that was it? So, dating nowadays, it's a trip, man. It's not even, it's not even about the like being bigger or black. It's dudes are freaking weird.
Yeah,
So that's
I
just where.
think I think the dating apps are similar to like social media where it's a screen, so they're like, if whatever I say, even if it gets taken badly, like there's no consequences. So let me just shoot my shot, even though you should not be saying that kind of stuff.
And see what sticks. Like I'm like, absolutely not. Mm-mm.
All right, let's get into this reality TV.
Okay.
So first, we can talk about reality TV that specifically is focused on fatness and being fat.
Mm-hmm.
I texted you, I really don't watch these shows
Mm-hmm.
because they make me feel like shit. They make me feel
With
so
good
bad about
reason.
myself.
With
Yeah.
good reason. It's part of what they do. And so for reality television, I've only worked on a couple dating shows. I've been doing a lot of game shows. But when it comes to exploitation in any way, like that's how those shows, they're rooted in exploitation in
Mhm.
general. And when it comes to a lot of the shows where it's like My 600 Pound Life, anything
Thousand
along
Pound Sisters, stuff
that.
like
The thing about those shows, like I said, always rooted in exploitation. But when it comes to casting, the way we look for people, we go through rabbit holes on social media. We're going through clinics. We're looking at what they help people with to find these people to see if they'll be a part of doing this show.
that.
With very little knowledge of what will actually become of it. And so you have seen a lot of stories where people, their mental declines. Sometimes, way back in the day, I will say that reality television has always kind of been a little bit of a godless place, just kind of trying to find a way to turn a quick buck. And a lot of times it
Mhm.
wasn't always good for the people who did the show in general. They didn't really pay them. And when you do hear a lot of people speak out on it, especially the shows that came out in the early 2000s, believe it because it was the Wild Wild West. There
Mhm.
was no union for those people. So any bad story you probably heard, don't sit here and say, oh, they want to be famous because sometimes that wasn't the driving factor for some people. But they did kind of put that as like, we're not going to pay you. We'll pay you in being famous. And sometimes fame is not a payment at all.
Mm-mm.
Look at the stripes. So they
Especially if they edit you like the villain.
correct
The-
statements for people. Their whole job is to create a story within what
yeah.
they have and try and keep it flowing that way. Not for every show, but there are shows, even shows I've been a part of, where I know that they've been like, choose this person, say
Mhm.
this thing because we need America to like you. So I can openly say that about a show I've worked on. So when it comes to those shows where it's more about plus size, I worked on Love Island. They wanted us to find a plus size person. They weren't going to have us look for people like on those shows, 600 Pound Life. They wanted Ashley Graham, which that is
Yeah.
a very specific plus size person. I am
Mhm.
5 feet. I will never look like Ashley Graham, a plus sized person. There's still, before there wasn't, because they were just like, oh, I guess fat people are winning now. So having people being
I
plus,
wish.
that was it, but now it's like, now they found a standard. And that standard is usually like
Mhm.
5'7" and still like barely a tummy.
Yeah,
So
no tummy, flat, hourglass, just really curvy people,
correct.
honestly.
I will say Torg's doing a little better with that because I do feel like Torg and Catherine's, I feel like their people in their print do show a little bit
Mhm.
more of like having that tummy and stuff like that. I do feel like they are edging more towards showing more body inclusivity. A lot of the new ones, like even the person we can't talk about right now, even though we were really hoping we were all rooting for you.
We
Uh,
were.
their Yitty line showing people that have that tummy, Savage X Fenty with Rihanna. Yes.
Mhm.
So they're being more inclusive. Love that for them. All right. You did ask about those shows specifically. Shows like that, it's just people are interested. And so they know that it'll make money. And
Yeah.
so when it comes to shows like that, it is more about the turnover. And I haven't been in a place where I've been asked to work on those shows. I don't know if I would be able to personally, just because it's hard for me to see that, because I don't know if they are getting help in the end. And I can't attest to that, because I know that there's a version of reality television where people don't get the help that they honestly really need.
Yeah. It almost feels like a monkey in a cage. Which I guess is a lot of reality TV, but those feel like specifically like that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like, back in the day, way back in the day. And I mean, I can also talk about, like, as a Black woman, there was a woman that they would always exploit because her body type didn't look like everyone else's. And it was like in a museum, like showing this woman who had a big butt, her big lips. She didn't look like the standard European centric beauty. She was on for show. That's not something that should be. It's like a zoo animal. It's like those old school circuses. The bearded woman. She probably had PCOS. That's what it was. Like, y'all over here excited to see the bearded woman. She probably had PCOS. That's what it was. Like, those kinds of instinct. Like, it just. Looking back, it just makes me think of that kind of stuff. It looks like a circus. That bugs me. So I would not be able to work on those shows. I have turned down shows before personally if I'm like, that is not something I can do. Beyond Love Fix My Life is a show where this woman, she kind of like helps people get their stuff together. Gotcha. But yeah, so that's the show that like I would have been bumped up to a casting producer. And for me personally, there's some things that aren't for sale for me, and my mental health is not something that I would bargain. Even though that job would have came with a title that I would have liked to use to kind of build my career up on. And I was grateful for the person who thought that I would be good enough to even work in that position. And I told them thank you, and I wanted them to know that they should put my name in the ring for anything else, that I was grateful for them. But I just didn't think that I could work on that show because I just know that there are stories that don't get told, and I wouldn't be able to stomach some of them. I will say that.
I wonder if, because I mean, we've seen what these shows, how they represent fat people, and I wonder if the people that agree to be on them now are just are promised help, like, maybe they don't have health insurance and they're promised that they can get surgeries and stuff.
Because they'll have like Dr. Now, who's like a big part of those shows. So honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if that was a reason why people do it, because sometimes there are those types of incentives. I don't think anyone is like, let me get on my 600-pound life or the 1,000-pound sisters because I'm going to become the next, person of the year in People magazine. Yeah. That's not it. So I do believe that there are incentives that probably are like that.
I did watch My Big Fat Fabulous Life, like the first season when it first came out, but then as you said, she kind of got weird. I don't know.
Yeah, that was something that I do remember happening. And so, I mean, I think that she probably got a little bit of fame because even for her, she was bigger, but she was cute. Something about, bigger people, we have really great faces. And people tell us all the time, they'll be like, ooh, like your face is so great if just your body would match. I've been told that multiple times. That is I think that for her, she still was able to probably have people in her DMs probably sending her things, because at the end of the day, like we've said before, it is a fetish sometimes for people.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And so like a lot of times people will they get bit by that bug that, oh, I am someone now, and they don't know how to act. That's why, the friends I have, they're small, and the people from back at home I know that they rock with me. So sometimes people just get a little above it all. And
listen, I was a TLC girl. Me and my mom, we'd watch like What Not to Wear, Sister Wives, like all
And
the
Sister
stuff.
Rod's out here and they got stuff too. When I was in reality television, the class at SIU, I did my senior year, and so we talked about those shows, but we were talking about like Bad Girls Club. Like supposedly they weren't giving them their meds. Like some of those girls were wilding out because they were actually like
Oh my
bipolar,
God.
diagnosed as such. And yes, there may have been people drinking a lot of alcohol that maybe didn't work well with the way their brain
Yeah.
was working on its own, and without the medicine and all of that, it was crazy. So like we got these crazy moments that live on forever for Bad Girls Club. But yeah, that is a problem. That was something that we learned in class. So I'm not gonna say I heard that from any person I know who's been on the show or work in the industry now. But yes, so that was something we talked about. So a lot of the shows that I've worked on after hearing about like the Bad Girls Club, maybe not really having psych, with some of these girls who probably really did need these things. So a lot
Yeah.
of the shows that I have worked on as far as like dating shows, we have them do psych evaluations. Also way back in the day, they accidentally let a serial killer like on a show, like back in the 80s.
I
So
think I heard about that. That's
like in
scary.
reality, they do psych evals now, and some shows do STD screenings as well.
Okay, so we were talking about fetishes earlier. I
Mhm,
found a TLC show that I think is currently on. I'm
mhm.
not sure. It's called Hot and Heavy. And the premise is normally the guy is the hot one, and then he like is in love with a girl who's heavy. And yeah. I watched a couple clips last night of it and I was like, no.
No, I don't love that. I've seen a lot of videos of people like, how could you be with a girl like that? He doesn't want you. Or there are girls who like DM these men. They are with this girl. So what if he wanted you, he would have DM'd you? Like I don't
Yeah.
understand. So I'm not shocked that after seeing videos of people with that kind of makeup be a show. I'm not shocked. And they probably said a lot of crazy things.
One of the clips I watched was specifically about the woman was thinking about getting the gastric surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the guy she's with is like, I can't even picture you skinny. Like, I don't want you to lose any weight. In fact, it'd be okay if you gained weight. And I'm like, it's
So
not about you, sir.
correct statements. So I ended up actually getting the surgery a month ago, and
Mm-hmm.
I was very much against it. I actually was proposed to have the surgery by my doctors back in 2019, and I was like, I'm in my 20s, I'll figure it out. Like, I will not be like this by the time I'm 30. Yeah, joke's on me. So like, I also didn't know that there was going to be a pandemic and grief journeys. I didn't know all
Yeah.
that would happen. So in my defense, I feel like saying no at the time was right. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that's actually a big problem. There's a big issue within the bariatric community where they have divorce. It's called like bariatric divorce because a lot of times the person who didn't get it in the relationship or marriage, they ended up missing their eating buddy, or they say you don't need it, like I couldn't imagine you like that. And sometimes women, they go through, get the surgery, and then the husband cheats on them with someone that's big, so now they know for a fact it really was, that was what they liked, uh,
Yeah.
things like that. So it is actually a big issue that sometimes people don't even really understand it until they go through that and they lose the weight and they see that, oh, my person liked me not because of the vainness of it. Sometimes there's a little bit of vanity to it where guys are like, now you're getting all this attention. Sometimes it's no, I like to go to the buffet. I miss my buffet partner. I like big girls. That's my
Mm-hmm.
thing. So that is a big thing in the community where bariatric divorce, it's like 80%. Like that's a high
Oh my
number.
gosh.
So that is not uncommon, especially hearing that from that show. That is actually a very big issue. I am single. I don't have these problems. So sad because a lot of these people, you know, they just want to live. Like, and for
Yeah.
me, in the end, it was health. My mom passed last year. I got to see firsthand what diabetes does to a person's body, to their organs. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually a lot scarier than I thought. And I got diagnosed with diabetes last January. So that kind of kickstarted me to lose weight. And I did lose some weight on my own. And I had no intentions of doing the surgery, but my doctor proposed it in December and told me that I should start the classes. So I did in January. And then 6 months later, I ended up getting the surgery. But there's a lot to go with it and make sure it is the right thing for you. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm so happy that I'm 5 weeks out. I start solid foods next week. Thank God. Uh,
Woo.
whoop, I can have a salad next week.
The girl in the clip also had just, in the past couple years, been diagnosed with diabetes as well, which was part of the reason why she had been looking into it. And
The
that's crazy. 80%.
80% when
That's,
it comes to bariatric divorce. Diabetes is not great. Like people who are living with it, God bless you. Because the way it can affect your organs if it goes unchecked or if you just have it for a very long time, it's not great. And that kind of just really put me into like, I need to get my health in order.
so now that we talked about that reality TV, let's talk about like regular reality TV.
Um,
You said that you cast a show where they were like, we want hot people.
I worked on
Wasn't
Love
it?
Island season
Yeah.
2. Yeah, they wanted hot people, and I'm talking universally hot people. And I have to say that
Mm-hmm.
specifically because universally hot people means if they are of color, they need to be universally, not,
Yeah.
you know, just like, oh, like, they look good for like a dark skinned girl or, whatnot. So I did work on that show. We even had like diversity and inclusivity training. And then when we left, our bosses were like, it's really great that you sat through that because you had to because of the network. But remember what we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Because they wanted hot people. And like I said, we're trying to also find the plus size hot girl, but plus size hot girl is Kardashian. Khloe,
Yeah.
she's very tall. So Khloe Kardashian
Mm-hmm.
would have been who they might have been peddling, or Ashley Graham to us as plus size girl.
Yeah.
Who like is very, confident in her curves and not like the bean poles that we're getting.
Yeah.
So there's that. When it comes to universally hot, there is a thing within the Black community where usually when we're trying to say, oh, we got one Black person, it's like a person who's tan, they're mixed, or biracial of a sort. And those are the universally hot Black people. Very seldomly are you finding hot, dark skinned girls as universally hot. Uh,
Yeah.
so that was hard. That was very hard to find. And then also, like I said, some of these shows, Love Island was one of the shows where we had to do screenings, health,
Mm-hmm.
physicals, and then also doing a psych test. So that was also a big thing. So we may have lost insanely hot people. So that kind of made it a little hard. So yeah, that was kind of the deal for that. But I do remember having a lot of people in my DMs after watching season 2. They were very happy that they saw more representation of Black people on that season per se. So I was like actually really happy because like I like reality television, but when I took that class as an elective, I had no intentions of that being my career.
Mm-hmm.
And so having people like actually feel seen, I was proud of that. I was very proud of that. And the team that I worked on, majority of the people from season 2, they came from my team.
Is it hard to know that like people with our body type is not who they're looking for and having to cast those traditionally hot
Yeah.
people?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Um, so I was an AP on that show, so an associate producer. And when you are going through people's, sometimes we have people actually apply. Sometimes we were doing our own outreach and trying to find these perfect people on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And you're reading, the hardest thing that's ever happened to them. And then actually there were some of them that, have had hard upbringings too. They just, they didn't have the same troubles I had, but they had troubles nonetheless. So I guess, pretty people have bad days too. No, I'm just kidding. Very aware of that. Mine was a bit of a double whammy because for me, I'm like, I'm a dark skinned girl. I never felt pretty sometimes growing up because the lighter skinned girls always kind of were the ones that got picked first. And there is a lot of colorism in our community, even though people act like it's not a thing, and it's actually quite annoying and infuriating, especially with the younger generation. I'm sorry.
No,
Where they're
you're fine.
know why people hate me. And I'm like, well, it's not that they hate you. It's just they've been grown or their parents were grown to believe that, you're going to be a mean girl because your proximity to whiteness, because you look more of the Eurocentric aesthetic. That is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Me, knowing that I, for sure, because of my body type, was not an option. And then also because I am not a universally hot girl. I am dark skinned, and that is something that's a thing. Sometimes, if you've seen Tika Sumter, she's beautiful and she's a dark skinned
Yes.
girl. Yes, like some people, you're like, dang, great. And then sometimes it's like, oh, I'm grasping at straws here. So being on the other side of that, trying to push for having people that like I felt should be on the show, but they didn't fit the aesthetic. Very hard, and also some of those meetings can be discouraging because people love you, but you're not the
But they don't
type.
want to see you on the screen. Yeah.
Correct. So that is hard. That was a hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I was working on that show when I turned down, not when I turned, like, that show came to me months after I turned down the surgery the first time in 2019, but it still was something that, like, is very prevalent that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't fit that. And I didn't know if I ever would.
Do you think it's getting better, or do you think it's just kind of staying the same with in regards to like casting fat people in reality that isn't focused on their fatness?
I don't think it's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that. I just worked on Love is Blind, and this won't be coming out for a while, just because of the way, uh, they've set up their seasons. But it was another thing that was brought up to us in casting was, hey, can you guys find, like season, I think she was from season 3 or 4. And I think her name was like Charity or something. And she was kind of built like Ashley Graham. She was pleasing to the eye. She found a man that loved her just the way she was. She also was very girly, makeup, hair. I like to go shopping. There's not going to be room for me your clothes because I have so many clothes. She was kind of like that. So it just kind of, they still wanted that the season I was working on. I don't know if we did, and I don't know exactly who was chosen in the end yet still. So it'll be a shock that season, but they still asked for that. But at the same time, it's like they want someone that is charming and excited about being plus size. And they have been putting plus size girls on the show. If you've watched Love is Blind, I've seen that they don't get any play. They don't get any play. They're not the ones that are falling in love, with an exception of that one person that said, I've seen the show where I've seen, some bigger girls, but, we don't really get to see them often unless a person says something so outlandish to them, like that season, because the guy was like, if we went to a concert and I put, I think his name was like Shakti or something, and when I put it on my shoulders or something like that, and the girl was like, no. So I think, like, so then that was when it was like, oh, they did cast, bigger people. So
Yeah.
they still, didn't really make it to the finish line where we could have that. And a lot of the guys, they say, yeah, Love is Blind. But I mean, like, if the person's bigger, like, still you hear this being said
Yeah.
in the confessionals and things. So I'm like, so maybe.
Love's not as blind as
Yeah,
you
so
think.
it's still a thing, and even though they try and spoon feed them in there, I don't believe that we're at that place. I feel like you need to see maybe more of that in other shows. I'm watching Big Brother. I feel like Big Brother is a little more diverse in their
Mm-hmm.
people. I do know that before that, they still did want people who were thinner. I know that they do
Yeah.
want hot people on that show as well because they love a showman. But I do feel like, as far as inclusivity with how people look, I feel like Big Brother is the only one where I've seen people who, toe that line of not being aesthetically skinny, a little bit of husky,
Mm-hmm.
still a word people want to use.
Is it as important to be aesthetically beautiful, or does it matter? No, not really.
Difference between like game shows and other shows. Like, we do get a lot of applicants for the game shows, but sometimes when they have a special, yes, I might have to get them like 80 people, 100 people, and then they choose the 20 that we invite to the show. And that doesn't mean all
Yeah.
20 are in play. Because sometimes, like, just for us to find, like, for Love is Blind, the season I was working on, we had 80,000 applicants.
Oh, wow.
We had 80,000 applicants. We only had like 4 or 5 pitches. Those pitches only come out to about like 30 people a pop.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of people to cipher through. And
Mm-hmm.
the best of the best that we think would be awesome for the show. So, but like, that's a lot of people.
Is that big of a number, 80,000, pretty standard for most reality TVs? Or is it like more or less?
I would say it depends on the show. There are people who are waiting in the wings to be on, dating shows, big
Mm-hmm.
dating shows. Yeah. So, that I would say it's standard for those. I think it's standard for the big dating shows like Love is Blind, Love Island. I think it's very easy for them to come across those types of numbers because people love those shows. Uh,
Yeah.
I've been working in game show land. When I was working on The Price is Right, oh my gosh, yes, people, the stories, everybody has a story. When I was homesick and I was with my Nana, I was watching it, like, or I would pretend to be sick so that I could sit at home and watch it anyway. Those stories, everybody has that story. So that kind of a show, I mean, yes, people are looking for ways to be there. Let's Make a Deal is a show where like people like it. They love Wayne Brady. They love to always talk about how they loved him on Whose Line Is It Anyway? That kind
Mm-hmm.
of show. People are interested in doing it, but it's not at that same caliber, I will say, when it came to like just easily getting apps in. But
Yeah.
do we get a lot of apps in? Yes, because people love those shows. They love those game shows. It's a bit of nostalgia for them. It's iconic for them. Especially people, because we get people who watched it way back when with Monty Hall. So that would be like 60s, 70s era. Like, so,
Mm-hmm.
you have those people who, game shows are a different beast because they can run, like, right now, The Price is Right is in like season 52, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Wow.
and Let's Make a Deal's in season 15, but that's of the reboot. So people love game shows. It's a very easy way to just be on someone's side that you don't know. You don't know their political affiliation.
Yeah.
And you're just happy to see someone win something. And it's like a good thing. I mean, sometimes people don't always win. Sometimes they get zonked. Sometimes, they spin and they win over or whatever.
Yeah.
But game shows, are just an easy way to kind of escape. So
Mm-hmm.
you get people who are, excited about that. So getting those types of applications, they're not the caliber of, those dating shows because there's like a different breed coming in with that.
Thank you.
You're
for
welcome.
being here. I always love catching up with you. It's always a good time. Do you want to plug any of your social media or anything that you're working on right now?
So I guess all right. So hope you as well. And I sometimes fall off, but I do have a TikTok that you can check out. It's called Pop Query. Specifically because it's like pop stuff that's happening, but like usually sometimes pop news can be effery, so that's why it's like that. But then also, I have my Instagram, and that's where you can see what I am working on. I always put a post up for whatever show I'm working on at the moment, and I do change shows often. I'm pretty much just a freelance contractor for Hollywood reality shows when I can. And if you ever have questions, I don't mind answering them, so you can DM me, and that's fine. But yeah, that's much
Roll the dice, see if you
roll
can
the
get on one of the reality TV shows you're working on.
Absolutely. I love to do that. I love to help people from, where I'm from or from wherever, I guess. Um, but yeah, you just kind of have to make sure that you are definitely like bothering me.
Hey everybody, so Anjene'e and I got to talking and I totally forgot to film an outro. So, please go follow her on all of her social media. I'm going to have it in the description and also on the podcast Instagram in the description. You can follow her through that. As always, please like, rate us 5 stars, share. It means a lot. I'd love to reach more people. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at bbb.podcast and TikTok at bbb.thepodcast. And you can follow me, your host, on Instagram and TikTok at Carolina Howie. And until next time, stay fat and fabulous. Bye.